Hello, I'm Mike Egan. You are watching my 2021 Game of the Year countdown, outlining my top 10 video games of the year. Every year for the past couple of years, regardless of whatever else I've been working on, I've always written up a Game of the Year list that I've posted on my blog, and I'm still going to be doing that this year, but I also want to do something a little bit extra, a video series in several parts counting down my top 10 games of the year released in the lead up to the holidays, and that's what you're watching right now. So, without further ado, here are my bottom 5 games of the year. I'm compressing my bottom 5 top 10 games into one video here, partly to save myself some time as I'm working on this in the hectic lead up to some holiday travel, but also because I generally don't have as much to say about these games. That's why they're down here and not in the top 5. Number 10 is Hitman 3. IO Interactive's follow-up to 2019's stellar Hitman 2 ended up occupying a surprisingly marginal place in my mind between good and just okay, hence its spot at the bottom of this list. It hit a lot of the right notes and carried forward a lot of momentum from the previous games in the trilogy, but also took a gamble on some new mechanics and a sharper focus on story, which for me fell a bit flat. For starters, there's the new digital camera item in Agent 47's toolbox, which allows 47 to act as the eyes and ears for another member of his team with a different set of skills, for example, hacking.
Locked. 47, use your camera and scan the lock, will you? I think I can override the Windows controls from here.
This is one of the ways that IO Interactive injects other characters into each of the missions you play, and from the very first moment of Hitman 3's first mission, the game is crying out to you, hey, check out this camera item. Pretty cool, huh? And while it's pretty neat to be able to use it to unlock some windows on a building in the moment, I was left feeling pretty lukewarm on the experience. Again and again, the game's story missions remind you, Microsoft Clippy-like, that that fancy new camera of yours might just get you out of such and such jam. It's a weirdly forced experience that runs completely counter to the previous game's ethos of use whatever you have, however you want. This is just one of the ways that Hitman 3's new focus on story grated against the whole Hitman experience. While both Hitman and Hitman 2 hinted at certain story beats in certain places and featured lightly animated cutscenes in between missions, that never came at the expense of each level's open sandbox nature, which allowed you to assassinate targets in almost any way you could imagine. In contrast, and with the exception of a few more classic-feeling Hitman levels, Hitman 3 often felt as though it were on rails, a feeling which is made manifest in the final level in which you are literally just walking through a train. If it seems as though I'm focusing only on the negative aspects of Hitman 3, I do so only because it's so surprising that a game that should have been a celebration of one of the most fun trilogies in gaming over the last 5 years fell so flat. I think IO got the better of themselves in a couple of key areas that, while arguably new and interesting, ultimately bogged down what made their Hitman games so fun to play in the first place. A hands-off approach and a focus on the interactivity of its systems. I truly had a good time playing Hitman 3. It's as fun as ever to traverse its puzzle box levels, which also are stunning to look at. A couple of really standout levels keep that Hitman feeling alive. China and Berlin come to mind in particular. And from a certain point of view, it's nice to have a conclusion to the trilogy's story, having played the previous games. IO have also continued updating the game and pumping in new content here and there, none of which I've checked out yet. Maybe I should. I certainly wouldn't at all mind another trip to the world of assassination. Number 9 is Mario Golf Super Rush. From the outset, Mario Golf Super Rush looks like a fun, bright, colorful golf outing, and in that respect, it truly gives what it promises. Here's the important bit. The golf is good. It feels really good to swing a piece of metal, wood, both, at that little virtual ball and hear that satisfying little thwack. And you might think, well, there you are, job done, 10 out of 10, perfect game. But the problem with Mario Golf Super Rush is there just isn't all that much to do. After this game's announcement, a lot of people got really excited about the fact that it would purportedly contain some kind of campaign or story mode. All the people who got really excited about this had played the previous Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance games, which had some kind of story and RPG mechanics. I never played those games, but I got excited because they got excited as well. Unfortunately, Mario Golf Super Rush's story mode isn't good. In practice, it acts as little more than a tutorial for certain golfing mechanics. It's very short, and even though it is, I never finished it. Because it's boring. Well, story mode is just one of many modes contained in this game, right? There must be more. The big draw of this game, of course, was Speed Golf. This is Super Rush, after all, so Speed Golf must inject some kind of excitement, fire into the experience of golf, right? No, I'm sorry, Speed Golf sucks. You take a shot, your ball is flying through the air, and then you take off running towards it. And then your reward for this is that you have run to it. The only things this does for me is takes away the ability to see where your ball has landed, because it removes the preview and you have to go run after your ball. And two, you have to run after your ball. I'm playing a video game to not do that. And fair, this is a Mario game, there's a little more going on here. There are power-ups and star shots and different ways that you can affect your opponent's balls, you know, blast them off the course, turn them into ice, etc. But none of that does it for me. I don't find that fun. I don't wish to inhabit the soul of the god of tricks, Loki himself, and play little pranks on my golf friends. I just want to have a good time. At this point you might be wondering, Mike, do you like this game? Why is this on your list? Fair questions which can be easily answered with the 4 simple words that can either mean prolonged life or premature death for any video game. It's better with friends. The highlights of my time, easily, with Mario Golf Super Rush were either the times that I was playing online, playing in the same room as my girlfriend, some of her friends, or best of all, and this is it, this is the reason why this game is on my list, when my friend Zach threw together some spreadsheets and put together an unofficial tournament for some of our friends. 1 course, 18 holes, doesn't matter how many people. Zach would set out a list of rules for what kind of clubs we could use, what kind of characters we could be, etc, etc. We'd play through once per day, average out our scores, and at the end of the weekend, we would have a winner. All of us playing, by the way, asynchronously, not online together in one big party mode, all just on our own whenever we could. This should be in the game. Why is this not in the game? People have lives. I can't always hop online for a 4-player, 8-player party time jam band. This little slapdash, unofficial Google Doc spreadsheet living mode gave this game life for me. And it's what made it one of my favorite things of the summer. Eventually, as Zach stopped putting tournaments together, I stopped playing. I fell off the game. I returned to it if and only if there was another tournament to be organized. There have been new characters added and new maps updated, but I haven't been back to check out most of that. And I might, if I'm bored. I do have a plane ride coming up, but I also might not. The golf feels good. I'm no fanatic, but you know, I've played my fair share of Kirby's Dream Course in my time, and this is a very good feeling golf game. So if you're looking for a very good feeling golf game, something you can play at a party with your friends and everybody can get the hang of relatively quickly, Mario Golf Super Rush, it's that game.
Good!
Number 8 is Ring Fit Adventure. I feel like everyone had their moment with Ring Fit last year as the pandemic was still just getting started and everyone was eager to move around just a little bit. Unfortunately, I didn't get to try it last year due in part to supply issues, so this year when a fresh batch of stock was available, my girlfriend and I, both starved for any kind of regular exercise, finally got the chance to try it out. Much to our delight, it's great. I had some misgivings about the blend of exercise with a cartoonish adventure, the worry being that it would come off a bit silly or maybe too childish. Happily, that's not the case. Every inch of this game is very much exercise and health focused, and that doesn't get lost in translation even when you happen to be chasing down a big, buff dragon. Anytime the game asks you to do an exercise, it pops up a helpful little video showing you exactly how to do it and do it right. These videos even pause the action if you're, say, in the middle of a battle to give you time to do the exercise correctly. The adventure stuff is very much there to complement the workout, and the developers clearly recognized that learning the proper way to do a lunge is much more important than defeating a monster. Exercising with Ring Fit is novel at first. The game comes with a big plastic ring that you slot one of the Joy-Cons into while the other gets strapped to your thigh. You accomplish tasks in-game by running in place, detected by the Joy-Con strapped to your thigh, or by squashing, stretching, or otherwise moving around the big ring, detected by the Ring's Joy-Con. Luckily, this novelty fades to the background once you realize you're in for an honest-to-goodness workout. My girlfriend and I stopped questioning the game's methods shortly after we started playing. Suffice to say, we felt the burn. Our time with Ring Fit Adventure lasted a good couple of months, and we really only stopped playing daily when it got too hot in New York City to exercise, even with the AC blasting. I'll never forget what a nice surprise this game was. It provided us with an effective workout routine that we wanted to come back to day after day, and helped us learn how to exercise in a non-judgmental way. I know this is cliche, and it's probably exactly what Nintendo wants me to say, but it really did make working out fun. Number 7 is Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise. Like it was for many people, Animal Crossing New Horizons was a big part of our 2020. I think we've played something like 400 hours at this point, maybe more. So when Nintendo announced their Happy Home Paradise DLC, it's kind of a no-brainer. Happy Home Paradise puts you in the role of a paradise planner. Animal villagers hang out on the beach of an island resort, and you design vacation homes for them based on their loose specifications. One villager might want a cozy place to read a book, another might want the perfect place to DJ all night long. You pick out a home for them and then get down to the meat of this DLC, designing the interior. And here's where things get fun. Upon entering the still empty vacation home, you are presented with 3 items that fit the villagers' stated aesthetic. These are must-haves for them. Then, you're given access to a list of other furniture that also fits that aesthetic, and you get to just place it as much as you want, or at least until you run up against the game's item limit. If that sounds simple or obvious, that's because it is. These are not things you can do back on your home island in the base game. Back at home, you have to scrimp and save and toil away just to amass anything even remotely resembling an aesthetic. Almost 2 years in, my home still feels more like it's inhabited by 6 different underpaid grad students than it does a home, much less an idealized virtual one. Happy Home Paradise finally sets you free within just the right set of constraints to make what is unquestionably the best part of New Horizons, making perfect little dioramas, truly shine. This perfect meeting point of freedom and constraint has already resulted in some of the coolest, most creative rooms I've ever bothered or wanted to bother to make in Animal Crossing. I made that little elephant a cozy place to read a book. I made that weird penguin the perfect all-night rave house. And my girlfriend came so close to perfectly recreating Frasier's apartment from Frasier that I can stand before you today and swear on my life that I have seen the face of God. With Happy Home Paradise, Nintendo has proven that there is a mathematical formula for unlocking the creative potential of the mind, and they are in possession of it. By being forced to think differently about how to design a room and being constrained to the things that each individual villager wants in their home, I find myself seamlessly designing rooms that I never would have designed for myself, either because it simply isn't my taste or that I never would have found or bought all the items necessary. And I'm having a blast doing it. Number 6 is Metroid Dread. It's not every year that we get a new Metroid game to play with. Even less often do we get a proper entry in the mainline series, the last one being Metroid Fusion in 2002. So with its official status as Metroid 5 and 1/2 the weight of the Metroidvania genre upon its shoulders, Metroid Dread had some big shoes to fill. Luckily, Samus's latest adventure in space manages to fill those shoes with the pinpoint accuracy of a Cinderella's foot. Let's get this stuff out of the way. Metroid Dread feels fantastic to play. Moving Samus around the world of ZDR is a fluid, dynamic love letter to the concept of game feel. Running, jumping, shooting, sliding, grabbing a ledge, turning on your heel to change directions, all of this feels fast and buttery smooth. This is to say nothing of the joy of interacting with Samus's further tools and upgrades as you discover them littered throughout the world. If you haven't played a Metroid game since the SNES, you're in for a real treat. The story of Metroid Dread is perfectly passable. Honestly, in a game like this, I really don't need too much narrative content as long as the mechanics are tight and fun to interact with. However, it was neat as a long-ish fan of the series to see some cinematic development of Samus and the galaxy that she inhabits. The few interactions you have with your AI companion are sprinkled sparingly throughout and aren't terribly long-winded, so the character doesn't overstay their welcome while explaining what it is you're doing. And the majority of cutscenes I remember were wordless, often featuring Samus pulling off some badass finishing backtracking move after finishing a boss encounter. The world of Metroid Dread, or on the planet ZDR this time around, follows the conventions of previous Metroid games and comes off feeling a bit disjointed for it. Progress is decently paced, and it's actually pretty hard to lose your way once you get into the swing of things, but I must admit to encountering a fair amount of frustration, particularly when returning to the game after some time away, and at least one or two instances of feeling entirely lost. By sticking to series conventions like elevators and trams to connect different areas of the world via lengthy loading screens, Metroid Dread ends up breaking its own momentum, leaving a little too much time to forget what you're doing and where it is you're going, especially on longer backtracking journeys. This is compounded by the unfortunate fact that a lot of the world just looks the same. There were probably one or two rooms where I actually thought to myself, oh wow, that's a cool area, but looking back, it's a lot of stark metal hallways giving way to stark metal rooms. It would have been cool to see Metroid Dread break away from its roots a little bit and introduce a more open, continuous world, or even the ability to fast travel around the map at will. Now, it's true there are a number of warp points throughout the world of ZDR that technically allow you to teleport across the world in the fiction of the game, but in practice, these amount to nothing more than glorified elevator rides featuring lengthy loading screens of their own, which defeat the purpose. It's also disappointing to see a series that I remember having some truly memorable environmental art, and music for that matter, rendered so flatly on modern, if somewhat limited, hardware. It's not that the game doesn't look good, and it sounds just fine, it's just that I don't remember much of what I saw, and none of the music is caught in my head. Despite these admittedly few shortcomings, however, Metroid Dread came through as one of the best games I played this year, and one I'll likely remember for years to come. And this was actually my first time playing a new Metroid game at launch, which is arguably pretty special in itself. I cannot overstate just how great playing this game feels, especially as you accrue more and more power-ups. It is an absolute pleasure to move about the world as a fully kitted out Samus and wipe the ever-loving floor with every alien you see. Honestly, talking about it here and looking back on my time with it, I'd happily play Metroid Dread again. That's not something I can say for every game on this list. There you have it, my bottom 5 games of the year. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there anything that you would have put higher, perhaps? Is there anything you think you can see coming? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned, because tomorrow these videos start coming individually as we dig through my top 5 games of the year piece by piece, starting with number 5. I'll see you then.